Is it possible for us to love the Lord our God with all of our soul, all of our heart, and all of our strength?
It is possible, and it is transformative.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here is your host and moderator.
Welcome, viewers. Thank you for joining us today. We have a wonderful conversation ahead of us. My name is Andrea Luxton. I am the president of Andrews University in Berrien Springs, Michigan, and I am today's moderator. I would like you to meet our other panelists.
My name is Mel Robeck. I'm an ordained minister with the Assemblies of God, and I serve my church as senior professor of church history and ecumenics, as well as special assistant to the president for ecumenical relations at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California.
Hi, I'm Rabbi Dan Levin. I'm blessed to serve as senior rabbi at Temple Bethel in Boca Raton, Florida.
And I'm Tom Plumley. I'm a minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. I serve at First Christian Church, Fort Worth, Texas.
And now for today's topic. When God speaks to the Israelites, giving them his law, he speaks maybe the most often repeated commandment. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. That's in Deuteronomy 6, verses 4 and 5. As commentators have pointed out, this is not just a far-reaching commandment. It is actually a seemingly impossible command for the Israelites. And when Jesus repeats the command to his followers as the first great commandment, it still seems impossible. Some commentators have argued that the impossibility of fulfilling this command emphasizes our humanness and reminds us of our reliance on God. Some have noted that as you can't command a feeling, this is really about an attitude of mind, a focus. Others have seen this command as a summary of the law as it relates to God and us, and that it is not intended to be a real expectation in itself. The addition by Jesus of the second commandment, to love your neighbor as yourself, is also seen by some as an important addition to the first commandment, with the focus on our love for God resulting in our love for others. With these perspectives in mind, the panelists are asked to respond to the following. First of all, what do you understand as the meaning of love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength? Secondly, was the original meaning and purpose of the commandment different to the Israelite nation than it is today? And lastly, if you were asked by a person in your faith community to tell you what that should mean in their life, what would you say? Mel.
Wow, not easy questions. Some of it is rhetorical. There's no question about that. But, these words are really the most important probably in Jewish history. It's the Shema, that is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God. The Lord is one. Love the Lord with all of your heart and your soul and your strength. And Jesus goes further and adds the mind. And as a professor, I always like to bring that one up so that students understand that working with their mind is also something that brings glory to God or demonstrates the love that they have for God if they pay attention and they do their work the way they're supposed to do and so forth. But it seems to me that this is about, really, in the first place, it's about the oneness of God. That's very, very important. Israel is a monotheistic group of people. It's Judaism is a monotheistic religion, as is Christianity, although we sometimes get accused of being tritheists or belief in three gods, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But we see them as one. So we share this with the Jewish community. But I think what this is trying to do is to say, first of all, this is a law. And as Christians, we find, or at least the claims in the scriptures, the New Testament scriptures is, we have no ability to fulfill that law. We can do our best, but we are all failures when it comes to fulfilling the law. The only person that ever managed to do that was Jesus himself. However, we're not left alone. God has provided a means by which we can also fulfill that law, but it's not in our own. It's not in our own purpose. It's not in the way we understand things. We have to be helped along there. So what does it mean to love God with all your heart and soul and strength? I think it means every part of us is, in a sense, captive to this one God that we claim to serve. The one God who has called us out of Egypt, if you would. The one God who has made us a people, His people, God's people. The one God who has certain expectations about us, who gives us various callings and gifts and vocations and so forth to work as a single body, a single unity, and so forth. And I think it's really important to recognize that when Jesus adds to this, the second command, which is, it's what is the greatest and what is the first commandment, includes the love of neighbor as yourself. And I think that is a way of demonstrating to God our love for God, the willingness to live with our neighbor, to love our neighbor as ourselves in a way that brings glory to the God who has called us, this one God.
Thank you. Rabbi.
So you're right, Mel, that these are the most important words that the Jewish people articulate. They say them twice a day during their worship. They put them in scrolls on the doorposts of their house. They wear them in the phylactery boxes. And it's interesting, can we be commanded to love? I mean, my whole experience in high school would have been a lot better if I could have said, I command you to love me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't work that way.
Yeah.
But then we have to ask ourselves, what does it really mean to love? And I remember when I was in high school, I thought I was in love with someone, and I said to my dad, how will I know if I'm in love? And my dad was the smartest person I ever met, laughed at me and said, you'll know.
You'll know.
And I don't think I really knew what it was to love until my son was born. And I remember when he was learning how to walk, and he wasn't good at it, right? You know, the kids do the Frankenstein walk, and there's a very unfortunate sound that a small boy makes when he falls head first on a tile floor in Florida, like this. And I would go, ow! And I remember thinking it was pretty amazing that he could hit his head and my own head hurt. And I learned something from that experience, which is that when your heart is so open to somebody else that you can feel what they feel, that is what it really means to love. And we can deliberately choose to open our hearts up. And we're commanded to do that in 3 different ways, 4, if you will. One is we have to love our neighbor as ourselves, which means I have to be open enough to feel what I feel, in addition to being open enough to feel what somebody else feels. And then I also have to feel not like just the people who are like me. I have to learn how to feel what the people who are not like me, the stranger, what they feel. But then I'm asked to love the Holy One, to love God. And what does that mean? Well, it says in 3 different ways. I have to love God with my lev, with my heart, with my nefesh, with my soul. And then the last word is me'od, which is a little hard to translate. So with my lev, I have to love God with my sentient being, my physical being. My lev, my heart is a pump, right? My nefesh is like my spiritual being, right? But me'od means very, right? If somebody does something well, you say tov. If somebody did something very well, you say tov me'od. Me'od means very. So how do I love God with my veriness? It's with my transcendence. So if I open my heart wide enough to try to feel what God feels, who feels what every human being feels at all times, if I can open my heart that wide, wow, what will I learn from that experience?
Terrific. Tom?
powerful expressions of, to me, how our relationship with others flows out of our relationship with God, and how our relationship with God flows out of our relationship with others. But I want to concentrate on the first word of the Shema. Hear, O Israel. Hear, which means
Listen up.
listen. I have to, at some point, silence all the stuff that's going on in me in order to be able to hear, because I want to hear that the Lord is one. What does the Lord then require of me? And then it goes on. But it begins with the hearing, okay? That's what makes this thing not only possible, but as you said in your opening comment, Dan, transformative of who I am and therefore of what the world is. It begins with us learning how to listen to that depth, that something that is within us and yet beyond us, and how to listen to all that is around us, that is informing us, because God is present in all things, in all people, and is working on our hearts in that manner. I think not only is keeping this great commandment possible, but it is something that can affect and will affect every decision, every interaction. It affects my free time. It affects what I do with my money. It affects my reaction to disappointment. It affects my reaction to interruptions and setbacks in my life. To remember that the Lord your God is to be loved with all that you are, and that is lived out by how I love my neighbor as myself.
So I want to push this a little bit back to you all, because I'm hearing it is possible. It is possible. It's about opening ourselves completely, and it results in this huge sense of love to others, to community, and to ourselves. It's all rolled onto one. But how? How? How?
So when we study this with my teenagers, and sometimes also with other adults, I do a meditative exercise, and I say, I want you to bring into your intention a concept, the idea that the Holy One, the Creator of the universe, dwells inside each and every human being, which means that the Holy One is a part of everyone and can feel what everyone feels, that there is a transcendent love that God feels for all humanity. And so we do a meditative exercise, and I ask the kids to sit in silence for 60 seconds and try to feel what that feels. Asking teenagers to sit in silence without their telephones or each other for 60 seconds is in of itself a pretty transcendent thing. But it's amazing to hear what the kids say. So I say, so what did you experience? What did you feel? And some kids said, I felt so sad. And I said, why? And they said, well, around the world, think about how many people are sick today. Think about how many people died today. Think about how many people are mourning a loved one today. And another kid says, no, I felt tremendous joy. Because think about how many people got married today. Think how many children were born today. Think about how many people fell in love today. And others said it was too overwhelming, I couldn't do it. Which in and of itself, that sense of humility of I can only know so much is in and of itself. But from that sense of care, of experience, comes mitzvah, comes commandment, right? I remember, when I was a kid growing up, I would say, I love you, and my parents would say, show me.
Yeah, show me.
Right? So that's really what the rest of that passage in Deuteronomy says, show me. Teach it to your children. Speak of it when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind it as a sign on your hand. Let it be a symbol between your eyes. Write it on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Let it, as you said, be this all-encompassing mission to live one's life actuating love in that way. And if we could even do that for, just, an incremental bit more than we do today, imagine what we might be able to achieve in our world.
The how question? When you asked that, my mind was drawn to the prophet Micah, who said, how do we do all of this? What does the Lord require of you? Just to do justice, to love kindness, to walk humbly in that relationship with God.
So is the doing leading to the loving? Is the loving leading to the doing?
Yes.
Is it a head thing? Is it I am decided I'm going to love God now?
I think there's a symbiotic relationship between the two. If I'm consciously intending to keep my heart that open, I will draw in inspiration, right, that leads me to follow this path. However, in Judaism, there's this other idea that says follow the path, and from following that path, you'll draw inspiration, which is why, when Moses is speaking to the Israelites, listen, right, but go do. Just live the path. Do it as commanded, because it is through the following of the mitzvah, the performance of the commandment, that you will come to know the mitzvah, that you will get to know the commander.
So it's a yes, is it? It's a yes to doing. It's a yes to thinking.
It's
It's
a yes.
a yes to. Is there anything else I've missed out there?
Well, I
Feeling,
think-
feeling and understanding.
I think love is all about giving. If I think about 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind, and so forth. You go right on down there. Everything is about giving of oneself to make that possible. It's not the internal, I'm going to give myself. It's going to give myself away in a sense. So I think when I think about this, love your God, the Lord your God, it means giving myself completely, absolutely completely. I serve you, the one God, no one else.
Have this mind among you,
Have you? Yeah.
I think
which is yours in Christ Jesus, who did not count equality with God as
Yep.
something to be exploited, but emptied himself.
And I think too often when we think about our religious lives, we think about our lives like a pie, and I'll cut this much out
Yeah.
for my religion
Yeah.
or for my faith. And the rest of it, my business life, my family life, my other elements of life belong to me. And what I think Moses was trying to say to the Israelites in that moment where they were preparing to move on without him was to say, no, this is not a segment of your life. This is your life. And this ought be the thread that ties your life together. This should be the lens through which you look at everything. This should be the animating force of what propels you into being, even in, as you would say in the Yiddish, in the mittendrin, right? In the business and the busyness of one's life experience, you can elevate all that to the level of the holy. And I think that's really the whole project of human existence, right? Is to elevate the basic process of human life to a transcendent plane.
Thank you. It's time for a break.
We hope you're enjoying today's program. If you'd like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the vision and history of the program, and we invite you to become a ministry partner, explore our Town Hall Estates healthcare facilities, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, we look forward to receiving your letters. You may write us at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. If you have a prayer request, please send it to prayerrequest@americanreligious.org. Thank you for writing and thank you for watching. Now, back to today's closing statements.
Welcome back, viewers. I hope you've been enjoying our conversation today and the challenge to all of us about loving God with all our hearts, all our soul, and all our strength. And we're going to move now into our closing comments. Now,
I think that not only is the Shema important to the people of Israel, it is also important to the people of God of the New Testament as well. Hear, O Israel, the new Israel, in a sense that Paul talks about. Hear that there is only this one God, and you will worship Him with everything that you have. I think Romans 12, 1 and 2 about putting ourselves on the altar before God is a great example of this. I think 1 Corinthians 13, where Paul talks about love. It's a hymn to love. And I think it's important for us in the 21st century, especially in a secular world where love is so often interpreted as something for me and what I can get out of you in any kind of a relationship, that I think it forces us to rethink how we love our God. And I think it also calls attention to the fact that there's only room for one real love, and that is of God, and we can make gods out of a lot of different things. And this is a call for us to hear, to listen, as you put it, over and over again to the call of God to love God and nothing else.
Tom.
Thank you. I think this is about focusing. This is about what is the focus. And my mind is drawn again and again to the last third of the 25th chapter of Matthew's Gospel, where Jesus said, I was hungry and you gave me food, I was thirsty and you gave me drink, I was naked and you clothed me, I was sick and in prison and you came to me. And that is how we find God. That is where we focus our lives and understand our relationship with God through our relationship with and love for one another.
So, as someone who says these words 3 times a day, what I love about Torah is that the mystics were right. Every word can be understood in 70 different ways. And the way that these words spoke to me when I was a child versus when I was a teenager versus as a young adult versus as a young parent to now a graying adult is always different. But one of the things that I think that I focus on is the idea that Henry David Thoreau wrote about, of the idea of live deliberately. That we should be intentional with how we move through life, intentional with how we move through our days. And we're so often, I think, in our culture given over to the idea that love is supposed to be something spontaneous, that happens to us. The thunderbolt, if you will, that happens when I'm going to see someone across a crowded room. And what our tradition teaches is that love is not spontaneous or unconditioned. Love is a choice. Love is a posture. Love is an intention. And I think that that's a very important piece of wisdom for us to start to get our heads around in our society. You know, we live in a world today that is so closed. We are so closed. We are judgmental and we're proprietary and we're chauvinistic and we're tribal. And we tend to sort of want to lock ourselves in to our places where we're comfortable, what the book 10 years ago called the big sort, right? Where we live with people who think like us, where we only talk to people who think like us, where we only read things that tell us that what we already believe is correct, where we only watch television that confirms our previously held dispositions. And what I think the message of this commandment is saying to us today is break out of those closures. Intentionally open your heart to others. And not just others who are like you, but others who are not like you. And the vehicle to do that is if you really, really want to love God, if you really prove that you are a person of faith, then you are going to be willing to love everybody. That there is no one who is ancillary or who is should not be of your concern. And to change one's posture in that way, I think could be transformative for our world and certainly for our individual lives.
Thank you very much. I've been sitting here thinking as we've been talking, what if everyone who professed to accept this command, the Jew, Christian, what if it really was something that they accepted as a commandment? How different would that look? How different would the way we relate to each other look? How different would some of the frictions and the other self-interests that keep cropping up come in? Because it is, as we've said, this is really about where is our focus? Our focus changes from ourselves to God, and let that love drive the way we relate to others in other situations. I think it would be an absolutely transforming experience. So those of you who are listening today, I don't know how you relate to this command, but I hope we've helped you think a little bit more about it, about the conscious decision that really is required, probably of all of us, 3 times a day. Maybe the rest of us need to take that up. Those of us who are Christians, 3 times a day. What a difference that might make in the way we relate. The Charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory but in reality. And so now, friends, until next week at the same time and over the very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.